January of 2007, when I found myself out of a job, till, well, for the next 3 years, I wrote an eco column called the Rob Report. And it was a bonus for me because I got to do in-depth research and interviews and work on a lot of topics that I knew a little bit about, but in order to communicate sufficiently to a readership and keep it interesting and have all your facts in a row, it was a lot of work. So for me, it was like going to school on a different issue on a weekly basis. So I came back this time around with the Arakawa administration, knowing a lot more about renewable energy, a lot more about biofuels, a lot more about sustainability, local food systems, and a lot of other things. So those were the three eco issues that in that article I identified. So the first one is renewable energy choices, and I emphasize the word choices because there are some things that I see proposed that make me scratch my head and I go, how sustainable is that? For instance, is it the best idea to run a $1 billion or more undersea cable from one or more of the islands in Maui County to Oahu to provide them with electricity? Or should each of the islands in Hawaii look for their own sources and provide and live within their own means on their own island? It's a big, complicated question, but it's one that each of us should be asking, where it seems that there's a mandate and a direction that's coming down from the state and even the federal level that's giving us, limiting our possibilities. This is our existing wind power operation, and wind power is great, but when we look at what we're capable of here, this is rated at 30 megawatts, and yet what goes into the system on any given day is probably more like 12 to 14 megawatts. So until we can be assured that we have smart grid integration for these big variable renewable energy projects as opposed to firm energy, I think we need to be really careful about the choices we make. Let's see what the next slide is. Here's a similar example. This was the dedication of the La Ola 10-acre installation on the island of Lanai. January of 2008, I believe, is when this went online. This is rated at 1.2 megawatts. The peak load for the entire island of Lanai is only about 5 megawatts. So this should be capable of producing somewhere around 30% of their electricity. But it's not up to 1.2 megawatts yet because they don't have adequate storage, whether it be battery storage or another method. And if a cloud goes over the sun and there's a big drop-off, it could crash the grid. So, we're doing better with renewable energy, but we're not where we need to be yet. Here's just a quick illustration of where a conversation of biofuels back in 2007 wound up on Maui, when there was an announcement that we would be building the largest biodiesel refinery anywhere in the world on Maui. We went, sounds good, we want to go renewable, right? And then people started looking at where the seed oil would come from, and they said, well, we'll grow it here. We went, yeah, but we're not growing any now. If we planted it now, it would take 5 years before we've got a crop to show for most of the ones that produce enough. Plus the cost of land and water and labor is just about cost prohibitive, and it would take tens or hundreds of thousands of acres, maybe all the ag land that we have in the state, to produce enough fuel to run our electricity and or our transportation vehicles. So upon asking the parent company, the utility, Hawaiian Electric, where the feedstock would come from, they said, well, we'll for a while we'll import palm oil from Southeast Asia. And the environmental groups took a look at that whole situation and said, we don't want to be any part of this. You know, you're not going to devastate rainforests in another part of the world just so we can keep our air conditioning on. And you know, the end of the story for now is that refinery was never built. There's a couple more pictures. This was a protest right across from on Oahu. And a bunch of people showed up. Go ahead. Always good to have a pregnant woman at your protest saying, you know, we got to think about the next generation. That's good. And it's even better if you can have. Well, this is Henry Curtis from Life of the Land with Nelson Duranchuk. Yeah, media coverage is good, but what's even better? A guy in a polar bear suit.